The Wolf of Wall Street is teaching something that no longer applies to today's modern consumer. Stick to this video and find out what it is. What's up, Catapulted Commissions family? Anthony Garcia on Catapulted Commissions Sales Talk. Here's the deal. The Wolf of Wall Street. We've all heard of him. Jordan Belfort, right? Movie came after him. Leonardo DiCaprio did it. Great movie, right? I literally love the movie. Is teaching something through his programs. There's a video on YouTube and it talks about how he handles objections. And here's the issue. The way we handle objections now is significantly different than the way we handled objections 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. There's definitely a significant difference in how we handle objections. And the difference isn't the skill set has changed. That's not the case. The consumer has changed. When we're dealing with the modern consumer, we have to be aware of the amount of information this person has at their disposal. So the hardcore, aggressive, pushy banter doesn't work so well, right? There's some things that I believe in this, you'll see this video here, that are done well. There's other things that I think no longer are applicable, right? And I get it, what I'm telling you is a tall order, but just bear with me. Listen to the video and understand how we're executing and handling objections with the modern consumer. By the way, if you want to see another video we just did, we did a video that highlighted 3 phenomenal sales trainers that taught stuff many, many years ago that's still applicable. We have a video that includes Grant Cardone, Zig Ziglar, and Chet Holmes. 3 legends in the sales training space. We did that video. You can class that video right here. It's down in the link below. And we talk about some of their training and philosophy they taught many years ago that's still applicable today. And we break it down on how to use it with the modern consumer. So be sure to check that video out. Now, let's jump into the Wolf of Wall Street.
Got a great topic today, skills training. Has to do with looping here, a specific aspect of it.
Okay.
How you totally handle different objections. In other words,
very important.
One of the things that I teach with looping, it's pretty obvious, right? So the broader levels is that when someone hits you with a common objection,
which we all get,
and then you run your initial loop, right? You'll say, well, does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? And they'll say, yeah, it sounds pretty good.
Okay, let's pause that for a second, right? The whole premise of handling objections and looping, and if you go through Jordan Belfort's straight line sales, he talks about a loop and you address the objection, come back. It's almost like gauging where your customer is at. And there's a whole premise. There's another YouTube video he does where he teaches it. I'm not here to debunk his looping methodology, but I'm here to say that I think there's an area that we can improve. So let's just keep going with this.
You enter someone's world where they are. They say, yeah, it sounds great. You say, exactly.
I hate the word exactly.
Enter someone's world where they are, right? But let me give you a different...
When you tell somebody exactly, I understand the thought process, right? We want to empathize, acknowledge the objection our prospect is giving us. So we say exactly. I get it. Problem is, people have been saying exactly for 40 years. And the consumers we're working with today can sniff a BS objection handling script from a mile away. That is the hardcore facts. So I understand, if you want to use exactly, not my favorite word, but I understand where he's coming from because essentially he's acknowledging the concern. So far I'm okay, I get where we're going.
So every sale is the same. You have all the common objections, 12, 14, whichever one you choose based on the industry. And if you want to count doubles with, bad time of year and Groundhog's Day, leap year, tax time, Christmas.
All right.
You get it? Right? But there's, a handful of objections, right?
Bunch of objections, and holidays, you name it.
Which objection you get hit with, your standard straight line response is very basic. I hear what you're saying, but let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? Right now, notice, this is important. This is the distinction.
So right now I'm hearing exactly, let me ask you a question. So I'm not completely sold that that's the right thing, and I'm gonna explain to you shortly why, but I kind of want to hear a little bit more of what Jordan says here.
So I say, I hear what you're saying, not, oh John, I totally hear what you're saying, but does the idea make sense to you? See, I don't
hear what you're saying.
If I say, oh, I totally understand what you're saying, but does I give away control. I lose.
Okay, A+ there, definitely some tonality. I hear what you're saying. over exaggerating. I totally hear what you're saying. I can't tell you how many times I've seen entrepreneurs and sales professionals over exaggerate the ability to jump in and acknowledge someone's objection. So exactly, I hear what you're saying. So I get it. Not the biggest fan of the phrase, but I am a fan of the thought process. We're acknowledging the objection we just got. We don't ever want to have somebody give you an objection and make them feel like they're the only person in the world that has that objection. Because if they feel like they're the only person in the world that has that objection, their subconscious is going to feel like they're not a right fit for whatever it is you're selling.
If I say, oh, I totally understand what you're saying, but there's I give away control, I lose power. It's like, oh my God, I understand, but it's like you don't do.
So right there, we'll pause one more time. When he's telling you to give away power, I get it, right? You never want to give away power in a sales process, right? You want to retain control of the conversation. That is a sales training philosophy as old as time, still very accurate to this day. I want to keep control of the conversation. The trick is to keep control of the conversation without the other person knowing you're keeping control of the conversation. And there's various ways to go through that. We definitely can discuss that on another video, but let's keep going here.
Do that. What you want to do is say, I hear what you're saying.
Here it is again. I hear what you're saying.
So I hear what you're saying. Fair enough, reasonable. But let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea, right? Now, you've probably heard me say that, or I've taught that too many times, right? One thing I might not have gone through though with you, because this is in the advanced.
All right, let's pause right there. Like I want to pause, and I think it's worthy of us mentioning, right? So exactly, I hear what you're saying, but let me ask you a question. I think at this point, when we go with let me ask you a question, we lose control of the conversation. Because the moment I say let me ask you a question, I just ask, whether it's a rhetorical question, and I understand the premise, it's a rhetorical question. Let me ask you a question. Most people are gonna say yeah, right? But you did just throw up a yes, no question. No, you can't ask me a question. I'm done, right? So you literally, at this point, you're pushing the decision line, right? So if we go through a sale, right? And we can even use this analogy of a straight line process, right? If I'm pushing the decision line closer and forcing you to make a decision, right? I am now introducing tension to this conversation. So here's why I actually hate, let me ask you a question. Because when we say exactly, I hear what you're saying, so we're acknowledging, let me ask you a question. What essentially you're telling this person is, it's more important for me to sell you whatever it is I'm here to sell. It's less important for me to hear exactly what you're saying. So I want you to think about this. Whatever the objection is someone gives you, it's too expensive, I don't have the right time, I need to ask my spouse, think about it, whatever it is. If I say, I hear you, exactly, right? Let me ask you a question. That phrase right there of let me ask you a question tells this person I'm more concerned with what I have to say and less concerned with what you have to say. That, my friends, is not going to work in the modern day era of sales. Now, here's the deal. This video is no diss at Jordan Belfort and the Wolf of Wall Street. I think, obviously he can sell. I'm not going to discredit that. But what I am going to say is that approach with this modern consumer isn't going to work as well as you think it is. I can tell you this. I have seen numerous entrepreneurs go through programs of big name sales thought leaders and come out frustrated and angry because here's the deal. We're teaching philosophies that don't apply to the modern day consumer. The modern day consumer that is sitting with you and listening to your pitch already has an indication in their brain if they're gonna say yes or no. Your job is to extract a yes, but they have already done their homework on you. They literally have researched you. They've researched your competitors. They understand the problem they're experiencing. They've done all this work. Matter of fact, 9 out of 10 of the consumers that sit down with you have already looked you up online and are trying to find reviews about you or your company. So when I say, let me ask a question, I'm literally saying what I have to say is more important. We are now introducing tension back to a conversation that you don't need to have tension in. When you introduce tension, now we're bringing that decision line closer. There is a way to handle this objection or any objection that doesn't force you to make your customer come to that decision line. Let me ask you a question brings tension in. Let me ask you a question indicates I don't care about what you're saying. So let's keep going through the video. Let's see, because I know Jordan elaborates a little bit on this working or how he approaches a different kind of objection that we've all heard before. So let's talk about that one.
This training course I'm working on now is that there is one objection that you actually handle differently.
What's the objection?
You still say the same words pretty much, but you handle the tonality with a different twist,
all right? So we are adjusting tonality.
Me, let me go backwards. You know what my favorite objection is, honestly? Or the one I respect the most?
What?
I'm not liquid right now.
Okay.
Because at least there's a chance it might be real. In other words, I want to think, what the fuck does I want to think about me? I want to call you blah, 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 right?
I agree with you there.
Smoke screen for uncertainty, right? But when someone says I'm not liquid right now, there actually might be some credence to the fact that, maybe they, thought they could afford and they didn't understand the full pricing. The point is it might...
The whole not liquid right now, let's be honest. If it applies to your services, then yeah, that's an objection you're going to hear. For many of you, this may not apply because whatever the services you're selling, right? The not liquid right now, I mean, unless I'm selling some investments or so like a hardcore, I need capital right now. I mean, this falls to a few people. Now again, I work with colleagues and I have some customers that sell $100,000 offers, so I get that, right? But let's just, I had to put that out there. This doesn't apply to everybody.
The point is it might be real, right? So I handle it differently.
How do you handle it then?
Watch how I handle, let me think about it. So it sounds good, Jordan, let me think about it.
Everyone gets...
I hear what you're saying.
Everyone gets, let me think about it. So here we go with this phrase. I hear what you're saying. Let's see what happens next.
Bill, let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea?
Ooh, let me ask you a question. Do you like the idea? Right? I get it. He is trying to have his prospect re-engage and essentially get like a temperature check on like their level of interest, right? He mentions it when he teaches in straight line sales, like the interest meter, like where someone's gauged their level of interest, I believe is this phrase, right? And here's the deal. I understand the concept of I want to gauge interest. The problem with doing it like this, when you say, exactly, I hear what you're saying. Let me ask you a question. Do you like this? Again, we've just indicated what I have to say is more important and I don't care about what you have to say. Because if you want to gauge someone's interest and you want to gauge the temperature, there's such a thing called as a trial close, a temperature check, all done in advance of asking for the order, right? By the time I ask for the order, a good sales pitch has already gauged the level of interest of your prospect. That is done through a good discovery call and a good pitch. You literally can tell where my prospect is or isn't. When I'm handling objections, it's just a request for more information. That's all it really is. Any objection you receive is a request for more information, or there are, Jordan referenced, there's those smoke screens, right? Like the BS ones, like, let me think about it. That's like the worst thing ever. The person that says, let me think about it, let's just be realistic, they're telling you no. So address it as a no. But nonetheless, I don't like the let me introduce, let me ask, do you like it? Because now you're gauging this person's interest. Now, remember what I just said, modern day consumers don't like tension. Modern day consumers don't even like salespeople. So now, my modern day consumer has said, hey, this is a little bit too expensive. Hey, I don't know if this is the right timing. Hey, I need to ask my wife. Hey, I need to ask my husband, whatever they're telling you. You say exactly, I hear you, but let me ask you this. Do you like this? It's a rebuttal, 100%. And 20 years ago, I would say that's a fair rebuttal. And it probably works. And for today's consumer, there's industries where maybe that works. But let me tell you this. The higher the higher level of sophistication your consumer has, the less likely this BS phrase is going to work. Because when you say, do you like it? You're indirectly insulting the person because again, you're not listening to them. The only thing your customer wants to feel is heard, listened, respected. And if they want to make a decision to work with you, it's because they know you can provide a value and you solve a solution. They'll say yes to you to avoid a pain or experience of pleasure. So handling this objection with the rebuttal of do you like it again introduces unnecessary tension to a conversation. You can eliminate this issue by simply doing some trial checks in the pitch. And during your pitch, while you're pitching your services, before you ask, you have very simple questions that can gauge. How do you feel this would apply in your business? How do you see yourself using this? Would this be something you would use before the end of the year, right? Whatever the trial close is, I'm gonna ask something that gets that person to think of taking ownership of this product or utilizing this service. That is done before you say, do you want to buy from me? Because now we're playing ping pong. We're going back and forth, going back and forth. And I gotta tell you what, all those movies from the 90s, all those hardcore movies that we all grew up on. I'm gonna age myself, right? I know some of the people who work with me and some of you who listen to my show may not have grown up on it, but The Boiler Room, The Wall Street, right? All of these movies, that old hardcore sales movie, Glengarry Glen Ross, right? A lot of that doesn't apply. The consumer is different, so we have to be different.
Hypothetical tone. But if they say I'm not liquid right now, I change my tonality.
I like the tonality adjustment.
I say, I understand what you're saying, Bill. So I actually give that credence. I actually, in other words, if you just say, well, I hear what you're saying, but this doesn't make, in other words, I want him to understand, I get it. It might not be liquid right now, and I've been there too, so that I can understand. It goes back almost to the same way you handle when someone says, yeah, I don't trust you, Jordan.
I like the tonality adjustment, really do.
I can understand. You don't know me, I don't have a track record, right? And in that case, which would be, the second part of our first, I was saying, but let me take a moment to reintroduce. I actually will show them how they can trust me. Well, the same thing goes with this objection too. Because when I say they might actually not be liquid, don't think for a second that if they say I'm not liquid, I'm like, oh, okay, well then I'm not, all right, I'm sorry I wasted your time. I'll never do that. Notice what I'm saying is, in order to make sure I stay in tight rapport and they know that I care, I'll shoot them a tonality. I'll tell them, I say, I understand you're not liquid right now.
All right, pause right there. He says he knows that he cares. A couple things here that I think are being done, executed well. I think the tonality adjustment, very strong. Matter of fact, not enough people adjust the tonality, right? And I share this with you. Tonality adjustment, the voice you use can influence, right? If I am in a conversation and I'm debating with somebody and we're negotiating and they're a fast talker and we've all had these processes, they're fast talking. If I just slow down and lower my voice, it forces that person to slow down because they have to hear what I'm saying, right? If I want to indicate deep concern or a deep concern or deep acknowledgement, I slow down, I pause, I look the person in the eye. I say, I get what you're saying, I understand, right? So the tonality adjustment, hey, I'm all for it. I think the Wolf of Wall Street here hits the nail on the head. You want to adjust the tonality. The one thing that he doesn't say he's doing, but I think is incredibly important, he has a level of resilience that you have to execute in sales. So I know I just said I don't like how he's handling the objection because it's rebuttal ping pong. I still don't like that, but I do like the level of resilience. It's almost like if I was coaching a football player and I was a high school football coach many years ago, I would tell people like, hey man, if you mess up, just mess up full speed because that shows me you care. So in my analogy here, I love that he's going full speed. I love that he is sharing that I am not going to give up on this sales call, right? Grant Cardone always talks about, I'm gonna follow up until someone tells me they're literally not gonna buy from me, until they literally tell me to never call them again, right? So there's some truth in the tenacity. So he is executing that literally in the way he's teaching you to handle these objections. So that's a positive takeaway. The tonality adjustment, I think more people could benefit from it. All right, let's keep this video going.
Shoot them a tonality. I'll tell them, I say, I understand you're not liquid right now. I understand you're not liquid right now. I get that. We all go through those. See the difference versus I hear what you're saying versus, I totally understand.
Oh, I just hate that phrase.
Let me ask you a question. I go back, then this is the idea. So either way, I end up going forward. But the point is that when it comes to money, I don't want to be just I hear what you're saying. I actually give them some, okay, I totally understand that, John. But let me ask you a question. Now, here's the deal. Once they hit me with that, by no means does that mean I lose my state of certainty. All I'm going to do now is, well, fair enough. Let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? You know why? Because now I'm going to show them how they can actually afford it, either through a financing option.
All right, so let's stop there one more time. Addressed all the objections, but again, we are asking these questions. Do you like the idea? Like, well, again, this is not a negotiation. This is a objection and a rebuttal, and you're handling objections. The best way to handle an objection, is to handle it before it even comes up. And the only way you know how to handle an objection before it comes up is by doing a pitch properly that gauges the level of interest from your prospect. I would tell you this. If you're getting hit with objections at the end that you can't anticipate, you're not doing a good enough job at presentation, you're not doing a good enough job at pre-qualifying, you're not doing a good enough job at discovery. So there's a lot of areas why somebody would be experiencing this level of objections. Now, we're going to address how do we change answering a question. And we're going to address that here shortly. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, do me a favor, man, smash that like button. Be sure to click subscribe. We break down tons of videos on here, and plus we address some videos for you, the sales entrepreneur that has a service, you're selling a service, and we go through some fun stuff. Plus there's the podcast, get all the fun stuff. We had some amazing guests on the show. One day I am going to reach out to Jordan Belfort. I'd love to have him on the show. So there's that. All right, let's keep this going.
A payment plan, or I might even go through a step-down sale. Step down sale, right?
Ooh.
Where essentially I start slowly but surely reducing the size of the order I ask for as I ask for the order each time. So if there's 4 times I ask for the order, I might ask for 20,000 of X the first order, 10,000 the second time, 5,000, and then
dropping down
1,000 the last time. It's 1,000 the minimum I'll take, right? In other words, just because they say they're not liquid, by no means does that mean I give up. All I'm saying is that.
Okay, so he's not giving up. Good. And what you're hearing there is he's given alternative solutions. So far, right, there's some good that you could take from this training. There's some things that I think no longer apply. But giving alternative solutions is appropriate. There is a manner in which you can present these alternative solutions that make your customer more likely to say yes. We'll discuss that shortly. The step down he talks about, I was taught 20 some years ago, it's called the drop down, step down, same thing, right? We step down, we reduce hey, fantastic, like 100%, that is sales 101. Like if you don't start with your premium order and work your way down, you're missing out the boat, right? So far, fair in alignment. Love that he's presenting solutions. So you wanna ensure you have your service that you're selling, you wanna make it affordable. You wanna make it a way for your customer to say yes. So you have various different solutions that he's presenting right now. So far, okay.
All I'm saying is that tonally, I want them to understand that I care.
Okay.
Because, listen, I understand you're not liquid, and I totally understand you don't know me and don't trust me.
Fair enough.
But what I don't understand is, let me fucking think about it. That's a nonsense. So the way I handle it tonally is different, and it has a very big impact on what happens, in the mind of the prospect. Because when you say something, I understand that. They're like, oh, okay, he cares. He's not just there to make a sale. Mm-hmm. But let me ask you a question.
Let me ask you a question again.
Does the program make sense to you? Do you like it? Do you like what I have, right?
He is demonstrating a level of caring. So that voice fluctuation we've talked about multiple times in the video, he's referenced it multiple times in this training. It is an indication that I care. If done inaccurately, let me rephrase that. If done incorrectly, it indicates I'm just following a script. So understand your tonality, practice it speaking to your spouse, practice it speaking to your kids, coworkers, colleagues. Just change the tonality in what you're saying and watch how people react. It gives you the best feedback on how your tonality is coming across.
Not just there to make a sale, but let me ask you a question.
All right.
Does the program make sense to you? Do you like it? Do you like what I have, right? And now they'll be like, well, yeah, it sounds pretty good.
I disagree. That's not happening.
Exactly. It really is a great idea. Now, in fact, let me say this. And now, just so you know, I'm still going to loop back, create massive certainty, focus a bit more on some of the cost-benefit ratios, and if there's a financing option, I'll certainly start revealing that right now, and then go to my step-down sale. You get it? But that's the distinction. Remember, tonality is so subtle, it's so powerful. So there's a big difference between saying, I hear what you're saying, versus I totally understand what you're saying, John. Between saying I hear what you're saying versus I totally understand what you're saying, John. But let me ask you a question. I hear what you're saying, but I end up in the same spot, but in each instance, I telegraph certain things.
Yes, you are.
In the first instance where they say, I want to think about it, what I basically say is I hear what you're saying, we're in a rapport, but I know you're full of shit. You get it? Like, I hear what you're saying, John,
okay,
but you're kind of full of shit. Versus, I totally understand that. But let me ask you a question. Try that today and every day going forward and watch the difference it makes. Has a massive impact on the mindset of your prospect. Love you all. We'll talk again tomorrow.
Okay, so now you're probably wondering, right? I keep saying I disagree, right? This loop back method of let me get you back, let me gauge your, let me gauge your level of certainty, address the issue, show you additional value. I get it. I understand that process. I was trained on that process 20 years ago. I don't drive the same car I did 20 years ago. I don't use the same phone I did 20 years ago. I don't use the same computer. There's a lot of things that have changed in those 20 years. So here is a alternative method of handling this objection that I think you would enjoy and I know works significantly better. So one of the things that Jordan discusses, he says, he acknowledges, I hear what you're saying, right? So we want to empathize, right? So you want to have a level of empathy when I empathize with my customer. So whatever it is, I hear what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, I get it, right? I love to repeat the objection. Hey, just to clarify, Mr. Jones, what you're saying right now is the timing's not right because you're under contract with your current provider, so you don't think it's the right time to get started with me today, right? Whatever it is, we're going to acknowledge. So you want to have some empathy, right? So now when I empathize, right, I'm essentially telling this person I understand how you feel, right? Here is the difference. In the beginning of the video, I said nobody wants to be the only person that has the objection. And right now, when we introduce and say, let me ask you a question, and we start pitching again, we put tension in. I want to create more trust, more familiarity, more belief that I am the solution to their problem. And the way to do that is to use one of the 7 psychological influences to get someone to say yes. By the way, there's 7 reasons that someone says yes. They're backed by science, they're backed by data. I see multiple sales trainers talking that they have this version, that version. Here's the deal, it's all from the same paper, right? 7 proven ways that you're psychologically influenced to say yes. And one of those ways is social proof. That's why every marketing video has tons of social proof. But nonetheless, so I'm in the middle, I'm having a conversation and someone gives me their objection. So I acknowledge what they've just said. I understand what you're saying, I get it. Just to clarify, here's what you're saying, right? You can even use his phrase, right? I understand, whatever. Let's empathize and acknowledge. So I understand how you feel. Here is how we handle the objection with some social proof. We're going to bring in somebody from the outside into the conversation. Somebody that has the same objection that you're currently experiencing and overcame, signed up with your product or service and is having success. So if this situation, someone says, hey, I don't want to sign up with your service today because I'm under contract on my other provider and blah, 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 whatever it is, I would say, hey man, I completely understand what you're saying. I had a customer, right, named Bill. We'll just call Bill, right? So my approach would be, I understand what you're saying. I completely get it. Matter of fact, I worked with Bill over on 6th Street. Bill was in the exact same situation as you. Bill had the same challenges and the same concerns. And what we found out with Bill is we made a few phone calls, we made some adjustment to his billing. And what we did was we offset the first 2 months of billing for us, and it helped alleviate the transition. So we didn't have to pay any buyouts from his contract, and it came to end. And what we found out with that, by saving those 2 months with Bill and utilizing our service, which is already less than his current method, he actually ended up saving 25% off his total annual spend. So I get what you're saying right there, but we have found that if we were able to make it happen for Bill, I'm certain we can make that happen for you. Boom! What I'm telling you is you're not alone in this objection. I understand how you feel, right? It's the oldest objection handling process in the world. Feel, felt, found. Can't deny it. I'm not gonna take credit for it because it's been around forever, but not enough people use it or execute it. Feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. Somebody outside influence felt the same way. brings in social proofs. What we found, what that person found, what we found out, level of success. Share that story. I understand what you're saying. What are your thoughts on that, right? Again, I'm handling the objection. It's a rebuttal, but it's a rebuttal in the manner of letting this person know they're not alone, and I let this person finish their story. And because I stick to the discussion pattern of the objection they're giving me, they're going to feel that they have been listened to, they're gonna feel warm, they're gonna feel invited, and the likelihood of me closing the sale increases significantly. If I just say, let me ask you a question, I'm essentially saying what I have to say is more important. So remember that, feel, felt, found. This is a perfect example of how to apply that. Empathize, boom, and execute, felt and found. That's it. So that is the way I would highly recommend whatever the service is you're selling, execute that when you're handling objections. I understand how you feel. I understand somebody has felt this way, or my third party, somebody else felt that way, and here's what we found. By doing that, it tells your prospect you're not alone with this objection. Other people have overcome this objection, and here's the results they've had. And it gives that person social proof that whatever it is you're selling is successful. One of the psychological reasons that someone says yes. Guys, it can't get much easier than that. So do me a favor, if you found any value in this video, smash that like button again. And by the way, 100%, right? I think the Wolf of Wall Street has tons of great material out there. I just think that this approach, right, has its place, had its place, and doesn't apply to many of the consumers that we're working with today. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't work for all industries. You may be in an industry and it works, it's great for you. However, the modern consumer that has access to all your data before they ever meet with you is gonna wanna feel, felt, and found. I'm Anthony Garcia, I'll see you next week.